The red warning lights had been flashing for 3 hours now. Reed pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the alien fleet growing smaller in the distance. 50,000 humans sat in cramped seats around him, their faces showing the same mixture of confusion and fear that twisted his own stomach. "Attention, human passengers." The voice came through speakers that crackled with static. Ambassador Theron's words carried the cold politeness that all Galactic Council members used when delivering bad news. "Your species evaluation period has concluded. The Council has reached its decision." Reed felt his wife Anna grab his hand. Their daughter Sam, only 12 years old, looked up at them with wide eyes. Around the transport bay, conversations died as everyone strained to listen. Humanity has demonstrated concerning levels of aggression and unpredictability during your trial period among civilized species. Your expansion into 3 star systems without proper council approval. Your military responses to minor trade disputes. Your refusal to accept standard galactic social protocols. A man near the back shouted something angry, but his words were lost in the engine noise. Reed squeezed Anna's hand tighter. Therefore, the Galactic Council sentences humanity to exile on the planet designated Crimson Ridge. This world will serve as your permanent home. We consider this sentence merciful, as the alternative would have been immediate execution of your entire species. The transport ship shuddered as it began to descend through thick red clouds. Through the windows, Reed could see other human ships falling through the atmosphere, like burning tears. Crimson Ridge is classified as Extinction Class. The planet features atmospheric conditions incompatible with most known life forms. Acid precipitation occurs daily. The flora has evolved aggressive defensive mechanisms. Seismic activity creates frequent surface instability. The Council estimates your survival time at approximately 6 months. Sam started crying. Anna pulled her close, whispering that everything would be okay. Reed knew she was lying, but he was grateful for the lie. Your ships contain basic survival equipment and 6 months of food supplies. The Council feels this gives your species adequate time to find peace with your fate. Make use of this time wisely. The ship hit turbulence as it dropped through another cloud layer. The acid rain Ambassador Theron mentioned was already eating away at the outer hull. Reed could hear the metal hissing and popping as it dissolved. This will be our final communication with humanity. The Galactic Council wishes you understanding in your final days. May your species learn wisdom in isolation that it could not learn among the stars. The speakers went dead. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then the ship's human pilot, a woman named Beth, came over the intercom. "Folks, I'm not going to lie to you. The readings I'm getting from this planet are bad, real bad. But we're going to land in one piece and we're going to figure this out together." Reed looked out the window again. The landscape below was a nightmare of red stone and yellow fog. Geysers of orange liquid shot up from the ground at random intervals. Strange purple plants swayed in the wind, and even from this height, Reed could see they had what looked like teeth. "First priority is shelter," Beth continued. "Second priority is finding water we can drink. Third priority is making contact with the other ships. We've got engineers, doctors, farmers, teachers. We've got everything we need to build something." "Build what?" someone called out. "This place is trying to kill us before we even land." "Then we'll have to try harder than the planet," Beth said simply. The ship touched down with a grinding crash. Immediately, the hull began to smoke as acid rain drummed against it. Reed unbuckled his safety harness and helped Anna and Sam to their feet. Through the windows, he could see the other transport ships scattered across a valley of red dirt and steaming pools. Some had landed successfully. Others had crashed and were already being dissolved by the rain. Reed counted maybe 30 ships out of the original 50. "Everyone stay calm," Reed found himself saying, though he had no authority to give orders. "We need to organize into teams. Engineers first, then medical personnel, then security." People started moving, following his voice because they needed someone to follow. Reed had been a supply manager back on the space station. He had never led anything more dangerous than a quarterly inventory meeting. But something about this place, this impossible situation, was bringing out something in him he had never known existed. The cargo bay doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. The first breath of Crimson Ridge air burned Reed's lungs and made his eyes water. The acid rain felt like tiny needles against his skin. The purple plants nearby turned toward them and made a sound like grinding metal. "Welcome to hell," someone muttered. Reed stepped out onto the red soil of their new world. The ground was warm under his feet. heated by whatever volcanic activity churned beneath the surface. In the distance, he could see mountains that glowed orange from within. The sky was the color of dried blood, and lightning crackled between the clouds in patterns that hurt to look at directly. But as Reed looked around at the other humans climbing out of their ships, as he saw them organizing themselves without being told, as he watched children help elderly passengers navigate the rough terrain, he felt something unexpected. Hope. "All right, everyone," he called out, his voice carrying across the valley. "Let's see what humans can do." The acid rain kept falling, but Reed no longer cared. This planet wanted to kill them? Fine. They would have to earn the right to survive here. And if there was one thing humans had always been good at, it was earning things the hard way. Alice Harper had always been good with her hands. Back on Earth, she had fixed everything from coffee machines to space shuttle engines. Now she was trying to figure out how to keep 50 people alive on a planet that seemed designed by someone who hated life itself. The makeshift shelter they had built from ship parts was holding up better than expected, but the acid rain was still eating through their supplies faster than they could replace them. Alice knelt beside a puddle of the stuff, watching it bubble and steam. 3 days on Crimson Ridge, and she was already thinking like a scientist instead of a victim. "The rain isn't just acid," she called to Ben Watson, the biologist who had appointed himself as the colony's chief researcher. "There's something else in it. Some kind of mineral compound." Ben looked up from the purple plant he was examining. The thing had tried to bite him twice already, but he kept poking at it with a metal rod. "The mineral content is off the charts. Iron, copper, traces of elements I don't even recognize. This whole planet is like a chemistry experiment." Around them, the rest of the survivors were learning to adapt in ways that would have seemed impossible just days ago. Children played games that involved dodging acid drops. Adults had started wearing salvaged metal sheets as makeshift umbrellas. Everyone had learned to recognize the warning signs before the ground opened up to spew molten rock. Reed appeared at Alice's shoulder, his face streaked with red dust and sweat. "Report?" "Good news and bad news," Alice said, standing up. "Bad news is we're running out of food faster than expected. The acid is destroying our storage containers. Good news is I think I can build something to neutralize it." "How long?" Alice looked at the collection of ship parts and salvaged electronics she had been working with. "Give me 2 days. Maybe 3. You've got one," Reed said. "Ship 14 reported that their food supplies are completely gone. If we don't figure this out soon, people are going to start dying." Alice nodded and got back to work. She had been an engineer for 15 years, but she had never tried to build a chemical processing plant out of crashed spaceship parts, while acid rain dissolved her workspace around her. The challenge was almost exciting. Ben came over carrying the purple plant in a sealed container. "Alice, you need to see this." "I'm busy." "No, you really need to see this." Ben set the container down and opened it carefully. The plant inside writhed and snapped but seemed less aggressive than before. "I've been testing these things all morning. They don't just attack anything that moves. They're selective." Alice looked up from her work. "Selective how?" "They only attack things that aren't adapted to this environment." "But look." Ben reached into the container and gently touched one of the plant's leaves. Instead of snapping at him, it curled around his finger like a cat seeking attention. "I've been exposing myself to small amounts of the acid rain, building up tolerance. The plant can sense it." "That's insane," Alice said. "The acid could kill you. Or it could save us." Ben's eyes were bright with discovery. "I don't think this planet is trying to kill us, Alice. I think it's trying to change us." Before Alice could respond, a warning shout came from the perimeter of their camp. One of the security team members, a former police officer named Dan, was pointing toward the horizon. "Incoming storm," he yelled. "Big one." Alice looked up and felt her stomach drop. The clouds rolling toward them were darker than anything she had seen since landing. Lightning crackled inside them, but it wasn't normal lightning. It moved too slowly, and it was the wrong color. Green instead of white. "Everyone into the shelters," Reed ordered. "Now!" People scrambled for cover as the storm hit. The first drops of rain hissed against the metal shelters like angry wasps. But as Alice watched through a small window, she noticed something strange. The green lightning wasn't random. It was following patterns, almost like it was guided by intelligence. "Ben," she whispered, "are you seeing this?" Ben pressed his face to the window beside her. "The lightning is avoiding our shelters. It's hitting the ground in specific spots." They watched as the green bolt struck the red soil, each impact leaving behind a small crater that quickly filled with glowing liquid. Within minutes, new plants began sprouting around each crater. Not the aggressive purple ones, but different plants. Ones that glowed softly in the storm's darkness. It's not a storm, Alice realized. It's terraforming. The planet is reshaping itself. The storm passed as quickly as it had come, leaving behind a landscape dotted with patches of bioluminescent vegetation. Alice was the first one out of the shelter, despite Reed's protests. She knelt beside one of the new plants and carefully extended her hand toward it. The plant didn't attack. Instead, it pulsed with warm light, and Alice could feel heat radiating from it. Not dangerous heat, but the kind of warmth that could keep a person alive through a cold night. "Ben, get over here," she called. "And bring your testing equipment." As Ben ran over with his scanners, Alice made another discovery. The new plants weren't just providing heat. They were filtering the air around them, absorbing the toxic compounds and exhaling something much cleaner. "The atmospheric readings around these plants are almost normal," Ben said, staring at his instruments in amazement. "Whatever they're doing, they're making the environment more livable." Reed joined them along with several other colonists. "What are you saying?" "The planet is helping us?" "I'm saying maybe the Galactic Council was wrong about this place," Alice replied. "Maybe it's not an execution. Maybe it's an opportunity." That night, as the colonists gathered around the new heat-producing plants, Alice worked by their glow to finish her acid neutralization system. But she was no longer thinking about just surviving. She was thinking about thriving. The planet had thrown everything it had at them in the first 3 days. Acid rain, aggressive plants, seismic instability, toxic atmosphere. And somehow the humans were still here. Not just still here, but adapting, learning, growing stronger. Alice looked up at the blood-red sky and smiled. "All right, Crimson Ridge," she said quietly. "Let's see what else you've got." The sound of children laughing echoed across New Haven's central plaza as they played their favorite game, tag, but with a twist that would have horrified their parents 5 years ago. The children had to dodge between the rows of domesticated carnivorous plants while trying not to get tagged by whoever was it. The plants snapped playfully at anyone who moved too slowly, but never actually hurt anyone. They had learned to recognize the humans as friends. Lisa Park watched the game from her office window on the 20th floor of City Hall. As head of the Colonial Defense Force, she had trained every adult in New Haven to treat this planet's dangers as daily exercise. What had once been a death world was now the most interesting place to live in the galaxy. Her radio crackled to life. "Commander Park, we've got visitors at the North Gate." Lisa grabbed her equipment and headed for the elevator. The North Gate was built into the side of an active volcano, where the colonists had learned to harness lava flows for unlimited clean energy. Visitors usually meant traders from the other human settlements scattered across Crimson Ridge, but sometimes they got alien researchers who had heard rumors about what humanity had accomplished here. She arrived at the gate to find Ben Watson talking excitedly to a group of humans she didn't recognize. They wore the standard gray uniforms of deep space miners, but their ship looked like nothing she had seen before. "Lisa," Ben called out when he saw her. "These folks are from the Kepler colony. They've been traveling for 8 months to get here." The leader of the group, a weathered woman named Carol, stepped forward. "Commander Park, I hope you don't mind us dropping by unannounced. We heard some pretty incredible stories about this place, but we had to see it for ourselves." Lisa gestured toward the city spreading out below them. "What do you think?" Carol's jaw dropped. New Haven stretched across the valley floor like a jewel, its buildings carved directly into the redstone formations. Gardens of bioluminescent plants provided light at night, while the tamed acid waterfalls powered the manufacturing districts. The residential areas were built around natural hot springs that the colonists had learned to purify and use for everything from heating to cooking. "This is impossible," Carol whispered. The report said Crimson Ridge was classified as extinction class. Nothing should be able to survive here, let alone build cities. "The planet tried its best to kill us for the first year," Lisa admitted. "Then we figured out it was actually trying to teach us." She led the group on a tour that had become routine over the past 2 years. More and more human colonies were sending delegations to learn about Crimson Ridge's techniques. The tour always started the same way, with a visit to Alice Harper's workshop. Alice was now director of planetary development, and her workshop occupied an entire floor of the engineering building. When they arrived, She was testing a new design for atmospheric processors that could turn toxic gas clouds into breathable air in a matter of hours. The secret isn't fighting the planet, Alice explained to the visitors. It's learning to work with it. Everything here serves a purpose. The acid rain provides minerals we need for construction. The carnivorous plants serve as natural security systems and food sources. Even the seismic activity helps with geothermal power. Carol picked up a piece of metal that gleamed with an unusual purple color. What is this? Crimson Ridge steel, Alice said proudly. Stronger than anything Earth ever produced. We make it by exposing regular metal to controlled acid baths, then tempering it in lava flows. Every building in New Haven is made from it. The tour continued to the agricultural district, where farmers had learned to cultivate crops that thrived in the planet's unusual soil. The food was not only edible but more nutritious than anything grown in standard colonies. Children who had grown up eating Crimson Ridge produce were taller, stronger, and healthier than their parents had ever been. The radiation that the Galactic Council said would kill us, Ben explained as they walked through the fields. It actually enhances plant growth when properly filtered. Our crop yields are 3 times higher than Earth normal. In the recreation district, Carol watched teenagers surfing on metal boards across the surface of acid lakes, protected by suits made from treated plant fibers. What had once been deadly obstacles were now sources of entertainment and sport. The metal melting storms happen every few weeks, one of the teenagers explained. You just have to learn to read the atmospheric pressure and position yourself correctly. The electromagnetic fields actually give you a boost if you hit them right. The final stop on the tour was the Diplomatic Center, where Governor Reed maintained communication with the other human settlements and monitored Galactic Council transmissions. Reed had aged well in the 5 years since landing. His hair was gray now, but his eyes were brighter than ever. We've established contact with 47 other human colonies, Reed told Carol. Most of them are struggling with standard terraforming techniques. We've been sharing our methods, and the results have been remarkable. Carol looked at the data displays showing colony growth rates, survival statistics, and resource production numbers. Every chart showed the same pattern. Colonies that adopted Crimson Ridge techniques were thriving. Those that stuck to traditional methods were barely surviving. Governor Reed, Carol said slowly, what you've accomplished here changes everything. If humans can turn a death world into paradise, what does that say about our potential? Reed smiled. It says the Galactic Council made a mistake when they tried to get rid of us. But maybe that mistake was exactly what humanity needed. That evening, the visitors joined the colonists for their traditional celebration in the central plaza. Musicians played instruments made from Crimson Ridge materials that produced sounds unlike anything heard elsewhere in the galaxy. Dancers moved between fountains of controlled acid rain that had been turned into art installations. As Carol watched children play with domesticated creatures that should have been deadly, as she saw families living in homes carved from volcanic rock, as she witnessed a society that had turned every disadvantage into an advantage, she realized something profound. The Galactic Council hadn't sentenced humanity to death. They had given them the greatest gift possible. They had given them a chance to become something extraordinary. So, Reed said, joining Carol at the edge of the plaza, what do you think? Ready to recommend Crimson Ridge to other colonies? Carol looked up at the alien constellations visible through the clear atmosphere that humanity had learned to purify. Governor, I think you should recommend Crimson Ridge to the galaxy. Diana Ross had been a xenogeologist before the exile, studying alien rock formations and mineral compositions. Now she stood in her office at the New Haven Marketing Department, surrounded by holographic displays showing the most beautiful and impossible images in the galaxy. Images of Crimson Ridge. The photography came out better than I hoped, she said to her assistant Mark, who was reviewing the latest batch of promotional materials. Look at this shot of the Thompson family having their picnic beside Acid Falls. Mark pulled up the image on the main display. It showed a human family sitting on a blanket made from treated plant fibers, eating lunch while rainbow-colored acid rain cascaded behind them. The children were laughing as they caught drops of the acid in special containers, turning the deadly precipitation into a game. The composition is perfect, Mark agreed. But are you sure we want to lead with this image? It might be too shocking for alien audiences. Diana shook her head. That's exactly why we need to lead with it. We want them to understand immediately that everything they think they know about deathworlds is wrong. Today marked the 10th anniversary of humanity's arrival on Crimson Ridge, and Diana had convinced Governor Reed to authorize the most ambitious project in human history. Not a military campaign or a scientific expedition, but a tourism brochure. The Crimson Ridge Experience, where every day is an adventure. The slogan had come to Diana in a dream, and she knew immediately it was perfect. The brochure would be more than just marketing material. It would be humanity's announcement to the galaxy that they were not just alive, but thriving beyond all expectations. Harper knocked on the office door and entered carrying a steaming cup of what the colonists called volcano coffee. The beverage was made from beans that grew only in the mineral-rich soil around lava vents, and it had a kick that could wake the dead. "Diana, I've got the technical specifications you requested for the resort complex," Alice said, setting down a datapad. "Construction is finished on all 6 luxury hotels built into the active volcano slopes. The thermal regulation systems are working perfectly, and the view from the observation decks is spectacular." Diana pulled up the images from the volcano resorts. The hotels were architectural marvels carved directly into the living rock of Mount Crimson. Guests could watch lava flows through reinforced windows while enjoying spa treatments that used the planet's naturally occurring acid minerals to rejuvenate their skin. "What's the capacity?" Diana asked. "Each hotel can accommodate 200 guests," Alice replied. "We've got luxury suites with private lava viewing chambers, standard rooms with acid rain shower facilities, and budget accommodations in the cavern systems, plus the adventure package facilities." The adventure packages were Diana's proudest achievement. Where else in the galaxy could tourists experience controlled seismic events, surf electromagnetic storms, or take guided tours through carnivorous plant forests? Crimson Ridge offered extreme experiences that couldn't be found anywhere else in known space. Ben Watson arrived with his own contribution to the project. As the planet's chief biologist, he had documented every species they had discovered and learned to work with. "The wildlife section is complete," he announced, spreading out photographs of the amazing creatures that called Crimson Ridge home. "We've got images of tourists safely interacting with crystal serpents, riding the flying ray mantas, and feeding the pocket dragons." Diana looked at the photos and smiled. The pocket dragons were her personal favorite. About the size of house cats, they breathed small puffs of flame and had learned to perform tricks in exchange for treats. Children loved them, and they made excellent companions for hiking expeditions. "What about safety certifications?" Diana asked. "All activities have been tested and approved by the Colonial Safety Board," Ben assured her. "We've had 0 serious injuries in the past 3 years of operation. Turns out that once you learn to read the planet's patterns, it's actually safer than most standard colonies." Lisa Park entered the office carrying a folder marked with military insignia. As head of the Defense Force, she had been responsible for training guides and safety personnel for the tourism program. "The Adventure Guide Certification Program is fully operational," Lisa reported. "We've got 50 certified guides who can lead tours through every biome on the planet. Rock climbing on acid-proof cliffs, deep-sea diving in mineral lakes, spelunking through crystal caverns. If tourists want to do it, we can make it safe and exciting." Diana gathered all the materials and began assembling the final brochure. The cover image showed a sunrise over New Haven, with the city's spires glowing in the morning light while gentle acid rain created rainbow patterns in the air. The tagline read, "Crimson Ridge, the galaxy's most unique destination." Inside, the brochure featured testimonials from colonists describing their experiences. Reed's quote was prominently featured. "Crimson Ridge taught us what humans are truly capable of when we stop seeing obstacles and start seeing opportunities." The activities section was extensive. Experience the thrill of storm surfing. Relax in our world-class volcanic spas. Dine on cuisine that exists nowhere else in the galaxy. Explore ecosystems that will challenge everything you thought you knew about life. The practical information section covered transportation, accommodations, and safety procedures. But the most important section was the one Diana had saved for last, the message to the Galactic Council. "We would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Galactic Council for this incredible opportunity. By exiling us to Crimson Ridge, you gave humanity the chance to discover our true potential. What was intended as a death sentence became the greatest gift our species has ever received. We hope that other species facing similar challenges might benefit from our experience." The brochure concluded with contact information for booking visits and a special note. Crimson Ridge welcomes all species, including our friends from the Galactic Council. We would be honored to host you and show you what impossible looks like when humans put their minds to it. Diana held the completed brochure in her hands and felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just marketing material. This was humanity's declaration of independence. Their announcement that they were no longer the species that had been judged and found wanting. They were the species that had taken the worst possible situation and turned it into paradise. Mark, prepare the deep space communication probes, Diana ordered. I want copies of this brochure delivered to every Galactic Council world, every major trade hub, and every species embassy in known space. As the probes launched into space carrying humanity's message, Diana stood at her window overlooking New Haven. Children were playing in the plaza below, their laughter mixing with the gentle hiss of acid rain. Adults walked to work through gardens of glowing plants, past fountains that turned toxic precipitation into art. The Galactic Council had thought they were sending humanity to die. Instead, they had sent them to live. Really live. And now the entire galaxy was about to find out what that meant. Ambassador Theron stared at the holographic display in his office, with the same expression he might wear while watching his own funeral. The tourism brochure from Crimson Ridge floated in the air before him, its cheerful colors and impossible images making a mockery of everything he thought he knew about the universe. This has to be fabricated, he said for the third time in the past hour. Desperate humans creating false hope before they die. His aide, a young Altarian named Kel, cleared his throat nervously. Sir, the deep space reconnaissance scans confirm the images. There are indeed massive structures on Crimson Ridge. The energy signatures indicate a thriving civilization, with technology levels that exceed what humanity possessed during their exile. Theron dismissed the hologram with an angry gesture. 10 years ago, he had personally delivered humanity's death sentence. He had stood on the bridge of his ship and watched their transport vessels disappear into the toxic atmosphere of the most dangerous planet the Council knew about. He had filed a report stating that the human problem had been permanently resolved. Now that same planet was advertising itself as a vacation destination. Sir? Kel hesitated before continuing. The brochure has been distributed across 17 sectors. It's receiving significant attention on the galactic networks. Theron activated his communication system and pulled up the public forums, where species from across the galaxy shared information. What he saw made his four-chambered heart skip several beats. Incredible human survival techniques. How did they do it? I want to visit this world. Can humans help with our mining colonies? The comments were coming from dozens of different species. Traders, scientists, explorers, even government officials from council member worlds were expressing fascination with humanity's transformation of Crimson Ridge. Get me High Counselor Varen immediately, Theron ordered. Within minutes, the massive form of High Counselor Varen filled Theron's office via holographic projection. The ancient Titan's rocky features showed no emotion, but Theron could tell from the way his crystalline eyes focused that he was not pleased. Explain to me, Ambassador Theron, how a species we declared extinct is now sending us tourism advertisements. Theron had been dreading this conversation. High Counselor, the humans were sent to Crimson Ridge as ordered. All protocols were followed. The planet's classification as extinction class was verified by our best scientists, and yet they live. Not only live, but prosper. Varen's voice carried the weight of mountains grinding together. I am receiving reports that species throughout the galaxy are questioning our judgment. They want to know what else the Council might have been wrong about. Before Theron could respond, another figure materialized in the office. General Kalen, the Council's military advisor, wore the expression of someone who had just discovered an enemy army camping in his backyard. High Counselor, Kalen interrupted. We need to discuss the strategic implications of this development. If humans can survive on Crimson Ridge, they can survive anywhere. Their technological capabilities appear to have advanced significantly beyond our projections. Theron felt the conversation spiraling out of his control. Perhaps we should make contact. Learn what they've discovered. Their techniques could benefit other struggling colonies. Absolutely not, Varen rumbled. Acknowledging our error would undermine Council authority across all sectors. We cannot appear fallible. But General Kalen shook his metallic head. High Counselor, with respect, we may not have a choice. I'm receiving intelligence reports that several species are considering independent contact with the humans. The Zephyrians want to hire them to help terraform their moon colonies. The Crystalline Collective is offering trade agreements for their new materials. Theron accessed his personal files and pulled up the original assessment of humanity. Aggressive, unpredictable, quick to violence, unwilling to follow established protocols. But as he read through the reports again, he began to notice something else. Creative problem-solving under pressure, rapid adaptation to new environments, unusual cooperation during crisis situations, innovative use of available resources, sir. Kel spoke up quietly. There's something else you should see. The aide activated a new display showing communication intercepts from various council worlds. Messages between officials, private citizens, and even military personnel, all discussing the same topic. They're calling it the Crimson Ridge Effect, Kel explained. The idea that humanity's approach to impossible problems could revolutionize colonial development. Some species are starting to question why we maintain so many restricted worlds when humans apparently proved they can be made habitable. Theron felt cold despite his office's controlled climate. The tourism brochure wasn't just an advertisement. It was a challenge, a statement that humanity had not only survived their punishment, but had thrived because of it. There's more, General Kalen added grimly. Our monitoring stations have detected human deep space probes mapping systems throughout this sector. They're not just confined to Crimson Ridge anymore. They're expanding. High Counselor Varen was silent for several long moments, his massive form perfectly still. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a tone Theron had never heard before. Uncertainty. How many worlds have we classified as uninhabitable, Ambassador Theron? Theron consulted his databases, though he already knew the answer would be problematic. Approximately 4,000 worlds across Council space are designated as too dangerous for colonization. And if the humans can make Crimson Ridge into a paradise, what does that say about our other classifications? The implications hit Theron like a physical blow. If humanity's techniques could transform one death world, they could potentially transform hundreds, thousands. The careful balance of power that the Council maintained, the controlled distribution of habitable worlds that kept species dependent on Council approval, could collapse overnight. High Counselor, General Kalen said carefully. We have three options. We can ignore the humans and hope they remain isolated. We can attempt to suppress information about their success, or we can acknowledge what has happened and try to find a way to work with them. Varen's crystalline eyes dimmed as he processed the options. All three choices carry significant risks. Theron stared at the tourism brochure still floating in his office, a simple document that had somehow managed to threaten the foundation of galactic civilization. The humans hadn't attacked anyone or declared war or demanded territory. They had simply succeeded where everyone expected them to fail, and now the entire galaxy wanted to know how they had done it. Sir, Kel said quietly, there's one more thing. The humans included a personal message for you at the end of the brochure. Theron accessed the final page of the document and read the handwritten note from Governor Reed. Ambassador Theron, thank you for giving us exactly what we needed. We hope you'll visit someday and see what mercy looks like when humans receive it. For the first time in his diplomatic career, Theron had no idea what to say. The landing pad at New Haven Spaceport could handle ships 10 times larger than anything humanity had possessed when they first arrived on Crimson Ridge. As the sleek Council diplomatic vessel touched down on the acid-resistant surface, Governor Reed straightened his formal robes and checked his appearance one final time. The robes were made from Crimson Ridge silk, produced by domesticated crystal worms, and they shimmered with colors that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Remember, Alice Harper said quietly beside him, we're not supplicants anymore. We're hosts. Reed nodded and walked forward to greet the delegation. Ambassador Theron stepped off the ship first, followed by High Counselor Varen and General Kalen. Behind them came representatives from dozens of species, all eager to see the impossible world that humanity had created. Ambassador Theron, Reed said warmly, extending his hand in the traditional human greeting. Welcome to Crimson Ridge. We're honored to have you here. Theron took the offered hand, though Reed could see the confusion in the alien's eyes. This was not the desperate, dying colony leader he had expected to find if he found anyone alive at all. Governor Reed, Theron replied carefully. Your world is... Not what our records indicated. Reed smiled and gestured toward the city spreading out below them. New Haven had grown to accommodate nearly 200,000 humans, plus the growing number of alien visitors who came to study their techniques. The buildings rose gracefully from the red landscape, their surfaces alive with controlled bioluminescent plants that provided both beauty and function. Records can be misleading, Reed said. Would you like a tour? The delegation followed Reed through the city, and with each stop their amazement grew. In the cultural district, they watched alien children playing alongside human children, all of them treating the planet's unique environment as a playground. In the research quarter, scientists from 17 different species worked together to understand how humanity's techniques could be applied to other worlds. This is Dr. Watson. Reed introduced Ben to the group as they visited the Biological Sciences Center. He was instrumental in helping us understand how to work with Crimson Ridge's ecosystem, rather than against it. Ben led them through laboratories where impossible things had become routine. Plants that filtered toxic atmosphere into breathable air, animals that served as living sensors for seismic activity, microorganisms that could break down the deadliest compounds and transform them into useful materials. The key insight, Ben explained to the fascinated delegation, was recognizing that evolution on this world had already solved every survival problem we faced. We just had to learn to read the solutions. High Counselor Varen studied a display showing atmospheric composition over the past decade. Your air quality readings are superior to most council homeworlds. That's because we don't fight our environment, Alice said, joining the group. We partner with it. Every challenge became an opportunity to innovate. The tour continued to the engineering districts, where Alice showed them manufacturing facilities that could produce materials stronger than anything in known space. The industrial quarter hummed with activity as automated systems harvested energy from lava flows, processed acid rain into useful chemicals, and maintained the vast networks that kept the city running smoothly. Remarkable, General Kalen muttered, examining a piece of Crimson Ridge steel. Our metallurgists have been trying to develop alloys with these properties for centuries. We'd be happy to share the techniques, Reed offered. In fact, we already are. He led them to the diplomatic center where massive displays showed the locations of human settlements throughout the galaxy. What had once been 50 exile ships had grown into a network of thriving colonies, each one applying lessons learned on Crimson Ridge to transform previously uninhabitable worlds. We've established successful colonies on 87 worlds that were classified as unsuitable for life, Reed explained. Ice worlds, desert planets, high radiation environments, toxic atmospheres. Places where other species saw only death, we saw potential. Ambassador Theron stared at the display in disbelief. 87 worlds? And growing, Reed confirmed. We've received requests from over 30 species asking for help with their own colonial challenges. The Zephyrians hired us to terraform their moon system. The Crystal Collective wants us to help them establish mining operations in hostile environments. Even some council member worlds have made informal inquiries about our services. The delegation spent hours reviewing the data, touring the facilities, and speaking with colonists who had lived through the transformation from death sentence to paradise. As evening approached, Reed led them to the central plaza for the traditional welcome celebration. Alien visitors from across the galaxy mingled with human residents, sampling exotic foods, watching artistic performances, and participating in activities that would have been impossible anywhere else. Children rode domesticated creatures that breathed small jets of flame. Musicians played instruments carved from living crystal that produced sounds of impossible beauty. Dancers moved through fountains of controlled acid rain that created patterns of light in the gathering darkness. Governor Reed, High Counselor Varen said quietly as they watched the celebration. The council owes your species an apology. Reed shook his head. No, High Counselor. The council owes us thanks. I don't understand. Reed looked up at the alien constellations visible through Crimson Ridge's purified atmosphere. If you hadn't exiled us here, we never would have discovered what we were truly capable of. Humanity needed to be challenged beyond our limits to find our real strength. But we intended your destruction, and instead you gave us transformation. Reed turned to face the massive alien leader. High Counselor, we have a proposal. The delegation gathered around as Reed activated a holographic display showing detailed surveys of hundreds of worlds throughout Council space. all of them classified as uninhabitable. All of them challenges that humanity now believed they could solve. We want to establish the independent human systems as a recognized galactic power, Reed announced. Not through conquest or force, but through competence. We'll take responsibility for transforming these impossible worlds and making them available to any species that needs them. General Kalen leaned forward. What do you want in return? Partnership, Reed said simply. Recognition that humanity has earned its place among the galactic community, and the freedom to continue growing, learning, and helping others do the same. Ambassador Theron studied the proposal for several minutes before speaking. This would change the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. Good, Alice said, joining the conversation. The old structure put limits on what species could achieve. We're offering a new model based on unlimited potential. High Counselor Varen was silent for a long time, watching human children play games with alien visitors while their parents discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight of decision. The Council will need time to discuss this proposal. Reed smiled. Of course. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. We've prepared guest accommodations in the Volcano Resort. I think you'll find the experience enlightening. As the delegation settled in for an extended stay on humanity's impossible world, Reed stood in his office looking out over New Haven. The city lights twinkled like stars against the red landscape, while above them, the real stars beckoned with promises of new challenges and new opportunities. Diana Ross appeared at his door carrying the latest edition of their tourism brochure. The cover now featured images from all 87 human colonies, with the updated tagline, Humanity, turning your impossible into our incredible. The new edition is ready for distribution, she announced. And we've received booking requests from over 300 species across 42 sectors. Reed took the brochure and flipped to the back cover, where they had added a new message. What can we do for you? The question had started as marketing copy, but Reed knew it represented something much more important. It was humanity's offer to the galaxy. Not conquest or domination, but partnership and possibility. The Galactic Council's mercy had accidentally created the galaxy's newest superpower. And that superpower's first act wasn't revenge or expansion. It was an invitation to see what the impossible looked like when someone refused to accept limits.